Let me be clear. The right wing and these so-called Trump border policies have nothing to do with keeping people safe. This is about ripping families apart, arresting immigrants, and blaming someone for our problems so we can ignore the fact that Trump and these right-wing officials are grifters and that Trump is taking millions of dollars from foreign governments to enrich himself. His main policy achievement had nothing to do with the border or migration, but cutting taxes for the rich and the biggest corporations in this country. All the while, the collateral damage is kids being separated from their moms, people in cages, which we can't deny. Mr. Holman sitting here before us said at the CPAC convention, and I quote, he doesn't give a about that. And desperate people living in the shadows,
that is
undocumented.
A lie. You just said something that wasn't true.
Mr. Chairman, would you please stop the witness from interrupting our members?
So you're saying right here, right now, that you did not support the family separation policy.
That was not
Is that your testimony?
That was not your question.
I'm asking it right now. Is that your testimony?
We implemented a number of policies in the administration. I agreed with President Trump when he ended zero tolerance in June, I believe, of 2018.
Did you support the family separation policy?
Again, we had no family separation policy at the department.
Really?
I'm asking you about a program of DHS, and I'd like to know why you haven't conducted any oversight of it at this time.
I thank you for making us aware of it.
You were not aware.
I was not.
Are you aware that this program was interviewing incarcerated individuals without their counsel present?
No, ma'am.
Is that constitutional?
It's unconstitutional.
Mr. Takufari, are you aware that nearly half of the employees in the Office of Inspection and Evaluations fear retaliation if they disclose suspected violation of laws, rules, or regulation?
You're asking if I'm aware of it?
Are you aware of that? Are you aware of the fact that 40% compared to 43% who don't?
No, sir.
Yes, that's a reality through the survey that you tout. How is a whistleblower supposed to trust your office when members of your own staff don't even feel safe to report wrongdoing themselves?
Would you reject Charlie Kirk's?
I don't know what his intention is. I mean,
would you commit to not going on the Charlie Kirk show again if he's advocating the Great Replacement Theory? And what Charlie Kirk has said is that he was pleased that Vivek Ramaswamy finally talked about the Great Replacement Theory on the campaign trail. And the Great Replacement Theory is basically that there's some intentional idea of replacing white Americans with brown and black Americans for additional votes or the diluting of America. You've rejected that.
I would have to have a discussion with Charlie Kirk and find out what he means by what he says.
But you reject the theory, correct?
It depends what his meaning of his theory is. What does he mean by that? I mean, I read stuff in the media every day about me that's not true.
What is it that you would think is a reasonable view of it?
Again, I don't think what's happening is replacing white Americans. I think it's bringing in a large group of people who the left thinks will be future Democratic voters, or going to change them out with the census numbers, going to change the seats in the House and all that's done. But I'd have to talk to Mr. Kirk and find out what his views are and what he means by.
But you believe there's an intentional effort by who to try to get more Democratic voters? I mean, what is it that your belief is?
I've been asked why I think they support open borders and bringing millions of people in. And I, as I specified earlier, you were not here, I don't understand why anybody would want to unsecure a border. I don't see any downside in a secure border. So there has to be some sort of political...
the last question on this is that just your speculation, or do you have any... I mean, that's a very serious charge to launch on...
It's just one option out of many. Do I have direct evidence is happening?
And who do you think is doing it? The Democratic Party operatives or other people? I mean, who's leading this, in your view?
You know what? I think you need to ask the administration, why did you open the border and why do you want millions of people crossing the border and be released in the United States? That's a question for them.
Hello, Inspector General Kufari. I want to ask you about the Office of Intelligence and Analysis. Are you aware of a domestic intelligence program under OIA that allowed Homeland Security individuals to interview just about anyone in the United States to gather human intelligence?
I believe we have an audit into that.
You have an ongoing audit?
I believe.
When was it initiated?
We're going to have to get back to you, ma'am.
Have you conducted any other oversight of this program? The Overt Human Intelligence Collection Program specifically?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Are you aware of this Politico article from March 6th of this year? DHS has a program gathering domestic intelligence and virtually no one knows about it?
I'm not certain that I have seen that one.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to enter this into the record. This program gives government officials broad discretion to interview any civilian for any reason that they want. Does it concern you that some employees working in this program are so worried about the legality of their actions that they wanted legal liability insurance?
That would certainly be a concern.
Are you aware of the workings of this program?
No.
Given that it made national news multiple times, why have you not undertaken an audit of this program in the past?
As I mentioned, I'm going to have to get back to you, ma'am, about when we did or didn't open an audit. I'm not certain.
Let me, as you go about that work, let me give you some facts. There was a survey in 2020. There were 126 respondents. So this is three years ago. Half of the respondents said they'd alerted managers of about their concerns that their work involved activity that was inappropriate or illegal. Are you aware of this survey?
No.
The slide deck put together by the department responded to this fact that half of all respondents said they were concerned their work was inappropriate or illegal. The slide deck said, quote, "There is an opportunity to work with employees to address concerns they have about the appropriateness or lawfulness of a work activity." Do you think it's appropriate for your agency to work with employees about their concerns about lawfulness, or do you think that your office should be making sure the program is actually lawful?
The program that you described, it appears to be at main DHS and not within the office of the Inspector General.
Correct, but you, as the Inspector General, sir, is your job not to do oversight of Maine DHS?
Oh, most certainly.
Are you aware that this program was interviewing incarcerated individuals without their counsel present?
No, ma'am.
Is that constitutional?
It's unconstitutional.
So can I have you promise that you will conduct an investigation into this program?
You have my commitment that if we don't have an ongoing audit, we will look into the matter that you're describing.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kufari. I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Kufari, the Office of Personnel Management's Federal Employee Viewpoint Survey is a tool for federal agency employees to provide feedback on how engaged they are in their work. When people are engaged at work, they're more effective at their jobs, they perform the work more efficiently, and part of a principal's job is keeping their team engaged. In other words, the Federal Employee Viewpoint Surveys can reveal what leadership techniques are working for agency executives and which ones are not. In fact, Mr. Kufari, you regularly tout your office's Federal Employee Viewpoint S-score since you've taken over as Inspector General. In May 2022, in a letter to this committee, you highlighted portions of your office's survey data from 2020 and 2021 that apparently show improvement in employee engagement. And in an email you sent to all your staff in December 2022 that I have here, you again highlighted improvements in your agency's 2022 survey data. Mr. Chair, I ask unanimous consent to enter into the record an email between Inspector General Kufari and his office lauding the importance of Federal Employee Viewpoint survey scores.
Without objection.
Thank you. Mr. Kufari, do you agree that the Federal Employee Viewpoint survey data are important indicators for how an agency is performing?
Yes.
That's right. And in the past, you have said that they document progress. However, in the most recent survey data shows that a majority of the people in your office do not believe that their senior leadership maintains high standards of honesty and integrity. 66% of your employees. Mr. Kufari, are you a senior leader?
Yes.
How about the fact, do you know about the fact that less than half of your staff in the Office of Counsel feel like they can safely disclose suspected wrongdoing?
Yes.
You are aware of that. Only 45% feel like they can disclose that. I find this incredibly alarming, especially when coupled with the fact that you've run away from any efforts to conduct oversight in your office, using taxpayer money, $1.4 million, to contract a law firm to run away from accountability on your part. And you know, I've seen weak leaders run from accountability before. In my home state of Florida right now, Governor Ron DeSantis is saddling taxpayers with billions in legal fees to defend his unlawful policies with his intimidation, his removal of dissenting officials. He's taking major losses on the backs of taxpayers because private sector officials called out his disastrous agenda. And the Florida legislature has approved a whole new budget to pay for all of his legal losses, but he doesn't want to answer for that. And I admit, at this point, many of us realize that DeSantis gets an F in accountability. However, inspectors general are meant to serve as a safe haven for whistleblowers. How is a whistleblower supposed to trust your office when members of your own staff don't even feel safe to report wrongdoing themselves?
I want to focus on, go back to what my colleague, Mr. Swalwell, was focusing on, which is my friend, Mr. Bishop's quote that there is an intentional sabotage of the rule of law. Now, we've heard a couple times today that the GAO and a federal court found that Mr. Wolf was acting unlawfully. To my understanding, that would be a violation of the rule of law. But let's focus a little bit on some policies and some efforts. Mr. Jimenez mentioned that there are children who cannot be found, which brings up, of course, the Trump administration family separation policy. Mr. Wolf, when you were the chief of staff to the Secretary of Homeland Security, isn't it true that you supported the family separation policy?
I was at the department from 2017 to the end of the administration.
Well, did you not, according to an Inspector General's report, urge the counselor to the Attorney General to implement the family separation policy, to increase prosecution of family unit parents and separate family units?
No, I don't believe. No. That's
Okay, well,
incorrect.
I want to introduce into the record this Inspector General's report on family separation, which includes an email by you to Gene Hamilton, the counselor to the Attorney General.
So that email had a number of options
hold on.
for consideration. There was no direction. There was no direct.
So you're saying right here, right now, that you did not support the family separation policy.
That was not
Is
your
that your
question.
testimony?
That was not your question.
I'm asking it right now. Is that your testimony?
We implemented a number of policies in the administration. I agreed with President Trump when he ended zero tolerance in June, I believe, of 2018.
Did you
Absolutely.
support the family separation policy?
Again,
As
we
the
had
chief
no
of
we
staff?
had no family separation policy at the department.
Really? The department did not?
Now, I'm happy to go through this.
All right,
the Attorney General
let's talk
announced
about
a
this.
zero tolerance policy that the
Let's
department
talk about
then
this.
implemented.
One sec. Let's talk about this, because the facts are that more than 5,000 children were forcibly separated from their parents at the border. And the reason is because the Department of Justice, for the first time, used Title 8, United States Code, Section 1325, which makes it a misdemeanor offense to charge anyone crossing without without papers, etc. That had never been used before, because the only point of that is to put parents who are charged with that in jail where they cannot actually be with their families. Now, a federal court in 2018 ended the family separation policy, which this court determined that there was, because the government's policy, quote, shocks the conscience, unquote, and violates the constitutional right to family integrity. There are still children who were separated at the border from their parents who have not been found because this zero tolerance policy, which ultimately ended up separating parents and children, did not create any mechanism to account for that separation in order to track the children. Now, that clearly, as a judge said, was a violation of the rule of law, an intentional sabotage of the rule of law. Let me go quickly to another one. According to a whistleblower complaint by the former head of the department's intelligence branch, Mr. Wolf ordered him to withhold an intelligence notification on Russian activities because it, quote, made the president look bad. The Office of Inspector General investigated it and found that the department did not adequately follow its internal processes and policy standards when editing and disseminating an intelligence product regarding Russian interference with the 2020 presidential election. And the acting secretary, Mr. Wolf, participated in that review process.
Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Homan, you began as the Trump ICE acting director at the end of January of 2017. Is that correct? I think the date is January 30th, 2017. Does that sound more or less right?
Yes.
And you recall on your first month on the job, Operation Crosscheck, which was a large-scale immigration enforcement action across multiple cities. Do you recall that?
Not specifically, but we did a lot of operations like that.
It was a very significant operation targeting communities in multiple states starting on February 6th, 2017. The ICE officials at the time said this was about going after, and I quote, criminal aliens and making us less safe. But they said that this was about making us more safe. But in my community of Austin, Texas, the majority of people arrested and separated from their families had no criminal conviction at all. Do you recall this?
I don't specifically recall that, but there's no prerequisite in immigration law that says you
I
can't
understand,
commit
but you
another crime
are
to be arrested for being in the country illegally.
I understand that. Your ICE spokeswoman at the time said that, quote, the purpose of the operation was removing from the streets criminal aliens and other threats to the public. But then a majority of people arrested had no criminal conviction. Does that square up for you?
I don't recall that. I find that.
I have another question for you, sir. Are you aware that your chief of staff, when they were asked this question, wrote emails asking agents to come up with, quote, top 3 egregious cases in order to deflect criticism? And if there weren't 3 egregious cases, go include a case from a different city. Are you aware of that?
No, I'm not.
So you're not aware of what your chief of staff was writing?
I don't know every email he writes. No, I don't.
There was an email directly to you from DHS Secretary Kelly asking for this issue to be addressed. Then, in my city of Austin, Texas, ICE officials were told they failed at this task because the egregious case that they wrote up was from before the time of the operation. Do you recall that?
I recall when I was ICE director, we arrested thousands of criminal aliens.
You're not answering my question. Reclaiming my time. Reclaiming my time. Do you recall that when we were asked whether this had to do with public safety, that then Agent LaRon Bryant said to federal judge Andrew Austin that the reason for these ICE operations was not related to a safety protocol, but instead was a result of the Travis County, where Austin is, new policy that would target criminal enforcement on immigrants rather than deporting non-criminal immigrants. Do you recall this?
No.
So you don't remember that Agent LaRon Bryant said under oath that under you, in your first month as director, that there was a targeted operation at a city because of a policy choice from a local elected official. You don't recall that?
I had 20,000 people under me. I don't recall every
You don't recall this from your
said.
first month.
No,
I understand. While legal pathways to migration remain closed and are getting even more closed, folks here saying they care about sexual assaults by cartels, give me a break. The Republican policies of trying to close legal pathways towards migration is the best blessing that cartels could have ever asked for. By making it harder for people to apply for parole, by making it harder for people to seek asylum, Republican policies are exactly what the cartels would like. Y'all are making the cartels money. Y'all are making the cartels money by trying to slash addiction services, by trying to slash helping people with mental health. Then, yeah, you're helping the cartels. If I was a cartel leader, I would be picking the Republican policies being proposed in H.R. 2 every day of the week. You have people like Governor Abbott saying he would shoot migrants coming across the border if he wouldn't get prosecuted for murder for it. You've got Trump saying immigrants are going to poison the blood of our country. Don't come here and say that you actually care about the safety of those immigrants. If you cared, then we would update our immigration laws for the first time since basically I was born so that people could apply safely and wouldn't have to go to a cartel and wouldn't have to go to a criminal organization. Immigration is a good thing. Immigrants are less likely to commit crime, more likely to start small businesses, help us economically. Sure, the food and the parties are much better with us here, but in our system, we have to open up legal pathways, and let's not say that this is about safety, because every step of the way, your agency lied and said it was about safety while you were separating kids.
Gentleman's time has expired. to the witnesses, if someone says something that hurts your feelings, just leave it there and don't interrupt the members. Respect their time. The chair and I recognize myself for 5 minutes for questions. Mr. Holman, we've heard discussion about using technology to secure the border, but technology really doesn't secure the border. It allows you to see who's coming to the border. And if you've got agents tied up processing people crossing illegally, it really doesn't do anything in terms of interdiction. Is that correct?
Could I respond to the earlier remarks, sir? That was saying I did something that wasn't said at all? I think it's important we set the record straight here. I never said at the CPAC I didn't care about family separation. What I said was I didn't care about...
Mr. Chairman, was he recognized for this purpose? Is this from your time?
The chair recognizes you make it as brief as you possibly can, and I think you've already said you didn't
I've never
say
said
that.
I didn't care about family
Okay,
separation. What I
that's
said I didn't
sufficient.
care
Let me-
about being sued because I get to give a sworn statement that set the record straight.
Okay. I want to get back to some things here. When you
Mr.
have
Chairman, I'd like
people-
to enter into record this article from Newsweek.
Mr.
Trump's
the
ICE
gentleman's
director
not
doesn't care
recognized. The
about
gentleman's
families
not-
being separated at the border. Thank you.
Reclaiming my time.
Mr. Chairman, is it in order now for me to enter things into the record?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So what I was trying to enter into the record is the article from Newsweek saying Trump's ICE director doesn't care about families separated at the border. Mr. Holman, the correct quote is, "I'm sick and tired of hearing about family separation. I'm still being sued over that. I don't get it right." Then I'd also like to enter into the record this article saying internal emails show ICE agents struggling to substantiate Trump's lies about immigrants.
So ordered without objection.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Holman, you have said that you plan to lead the largest mass deportation operation in history. Is that your aspiration?
The largest illegal immigration crisis on the border is going to have to result in the largest deportation operation because most of them will get order removal.
I'm just using your words. You stand by that?
Yes, absolutely.
What is that? Does that mean that you're telling the American public? I'm just trying to understand. If they're 10, 11, 12 million undocumented, I don't know, how many do you think that any one of those folks, if you're in charge, is going to face potential deportation?
I think if you're in the country illegally, you need to be concerned because you're in the country illegally.
So you're telling basically any American today, or any undocumented person here today, 11 million, that your goal, if you get power again, is you're going to lead the largest mass deportation of all of them, correct?
The biggest illegal alien crisis on the southern border. Millions
I
of people
don't-
cross.
I
But
just
no,
don't-
you got to put it in perspective. If you believe in due process and they have the right to claim asylum, they have the right to due process and see a court, when those final orders are issued, if they're not executed, then what the hell are we doing?
I just
Shut down the
want
immigration
people
court.
to know what happens if you come into power. You've been pretty candid about it, and
Yes.
so I think it's important for people to understand. Now, I assume that you reject this great replacement theory, correct?
The numbers are the numbers. So
No, this conspiracy theory of great replacement, that somehow there's an intentional effort to replace white Americans with Americans who look like me. You reject that theory, correct?
yes, I don't think it's about replacement.
Mr. Edlow, do you clearly reject the great replacement theory?
Yes, that's not what this is about.
Would you reject Charlie Kirk, who has said that the great replacement theory is something that more Republicans should embrace? Would you reject his characterization?
I'm not aware of his characterization.
If he's advocating for the great replacement
I can only speak to myself. I'm not.
Would you reject any person who advocates for the great replacement theory?
I'm not.
Mr. Holman, would you reject Charlie Kirk's?
I don't know what his intention is.
Do you have any sense that this administration doesn't believe in secure borders? And what would be the top 3 policies that you would implement to secure the border?
Well, first of all, this administration is removing record numbers of people, and in fact, a higher percentage of people who cross the border than were removed in 2019 and 2020. So the idea that they have no interest in this, they don't want to remove people. I mean, if they did that, why do they have cages? Why do they have all the things that you've talked about? It's logistical issues. Congress has funded 34,000 beds, and that's how many people arrive in 4 days at the border. That's why people are being released. The solution to this is legal immigration. We need to resolve how we want people to come to this country. Have a conversation about that. And once we agree that people are good, immigrants contribute to this country, then we can have a conversation about how should they come? What's the way? What's the mechanism? Because right now there isn't any for the people who are showing up at our border.
Thank you.